Hello? Hello? Okay. Seat. There's not a bad seat in this house. And we're almost ready to begin. So did you guys have a good time at Science Fair? Yeah? You learned some things? Excellent, excellent. Well, this is the beginning of 3 jam-packed days of learning and sharing and dialoguing and meeting people who are building the decentralized web. If you would just get a seat, we're going to get started. So I'm going to ask Dominic to sit down and Jeremy to sit down and all of our friends who I know by name. I'm going to ask Mark Nadell to find a seat. Yeah, that's right. Everyone find a seat. Brian Ziska's going to find a seat, and we're going to get started. Okay. You're up.
Woohoo! Welcome to the Internet Archive. And welcome to the beginning of the Decentralized Web Summit of 2018. Welcome. This is a great day. I think we've got basically critical mass of the people that are building the next generation web. And what's interesting to me is that we're gathering with a North Star of how do we actually do something that we're really going to be proud of. Something that's open, that's going to lock the web open for good. And thank you very much for coming from here and far to come together to help understand how we can go and build a next generation web. Thank you. Welcome. How many people is the first time they've been in this building? Woohoo! Welcome. Okay, so where are you? You are in the Internet Archive, which is in a building that used to be a Christian Science church. That's why you're sitting on pews. We thought we'd flatten the floor and make it into a library, but exactly what a library looks like we didn't know. So we thought, let's move a little slowly so you get to sit in pews. But we've done some interesting things. So if you crane your necks and look back, there's 10 petabytes of servers of the primary copy of the Internet Archive's 40 petabytes. So that's 10 petabytes serving the world, which I think is kind of cool that you actually get to see the servers. I've been designing supercomputers my whole career, and I think the cool thing about this one for me is the lights actually mean something. Every time a light blinks, is somebody either uploading something or downloading something from the Internet Archive. We get about 4 million different people, IP addresses, coming and using the Internet Archive's resources every day. So that's kind of fun. And you might actually kind of wonder if you saw the little sculptures on the sides. They're us. They're the people that work at the Internet Archive. For 3 years or more, we make a little statue. It's kind of a riff on the terracotta soldiers from Xi'an, China. And it's just a way of celebrating the people that are basically putting their lives to a nonprofit civic use, right? There is no gold at the end of the rainbow. at the Internet Archive. There's no stock options, there's no sellout, there's no like, gosh, you know, you get to now buy your Tesla and buy your house for cash. The people that are working here for basically the good of trying to make it so that there's universal access to all knowledge. So I'm very happy that you guys are here to try to help think about, plan out, build the next generation web, however it should go. And why do I think it's right to be here in our home, in our house, is because I'd really like to sort of shine a light on us, or point to our North Star that is on our better side, where we get to put our greed back in our pockets, or all the things we've been hyped up to say by the VCs, and try to actually build an infrastructure that locks the web open. Can we make it so that we bake our values into the code itself? Can we make that actually work? I don't know, but if there's a group that can do it, it's in this room. Thank you very much for coming together. So you'll have a great time over the next couple days. I'm sorry it starts pretty early by hacker hours to actually get up and get to the mint. But I highly recommend you make, I think there are 150 sessions. But I hope that you come to as many of those possibly that you can, because you'll get to meet the real people, and you'll get to be the real people in trying to figure this whole thing out. And with that, I'd like to introduce the woman that's really been pulling together the whole Decentralized Web Summit 2018, Wendy Hanamura, the Director Partners of the Internet Archive.
All right. I'm good. Welcome to our house, everyone. Welcome to the opening party of the Decentralized Web Summit 2018. And you have come from so far and so wide. And to you, I want to say, welcome to summer in San Francisco. Woohoo! You're huddled in your little blankets. We bought 60 blankets, but that wasn't enough. But the funny thing was, the guys from Troon, Scotland, the Maid Safe crew, they're in like shirt sleeves. It's like, oh, this is really fine, Wendy. But the rest of you have come from Helsinki and Budapest and Tokyo and Niterói, Brazil. You've come so far to be with us this week, and we're so honored to have you here this week with us. But why? Why have you come so far? I think it's because, like us, you believe that we can build a better web. We can build the web that we need and the web that we deserve. You can build a web that remembers and a web that forgets. You can build a web that is a marketplace and a public square, one that's magical and fun, a web that is locked open for good, a web with many winners. That is why we are here together this week, my friends. We're going to dive in deep. But tonight is about one thing. It's about having some fun. So we hope that you've had some fun so far, but we're going to ramp up the fun because, you know, when we first met in 2016, we were trying to decide what to call this thing. We said, should we call it distributed web or should we call it decentralized web? Distributed, decentralized. We settled on decentralized. And now decentralized has become a meme. There's an art exhibit down at the gray area about decentralized art driven by the blockchain. I was getting my hair cut, and I had this very cogent, interesting discussion with my hair cutter about the decentralized internet because he watches a television show called Silicon Valley. And if there is one group, one show that has done more to make the word decentralized a household word, it is that show and that group of writers and producers and creators. And they have come to be with you tonight. That is what tonight is about. Because in season 4, when the founder of Pied Piper was just beset with troubles, he decided to pivot to something new. Take a look at these clips from season 4 and 5 of HBO's Silicon Valley. We've got work to do. Without more ado, let me introduce two very special guests. Our friend, our ally. He's a science fiction writer. He's a journalist. He's an activist. Cory Doctorow, in conversation with the director, writer, co-creator of HBO's Emmy Award-winning series Silicon Valley. Please welcome Mike Judge.
I go first? Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks. So we've talked a little about where you came from and how you came to end up having produced so many of these works that are such touchstones for people who work in technical fields and people who are embroiled in all of these different struggles and adventures. And one of the things that I know about you is that you started off making independent, interesting, quirky, amazing stuff at this incredible, amazing, quirky, independent moment out of Austin, where you're making these animations that were not like anything anyone had ever seen at this time when there were so many different companies that were providing channels for it. And you've managed to weather this arc in which this decentralized system of entertainment became super centralized. And I wondered if you had any advice for us, because here we are, having lived through that same dream maybe 10 years after you and the industry you're in, and we're confronting a moment that maybe you've already blown past.
Well, that's yeah, I'm old, so in case you didn't notice. Yeah, I started out making animated shorts in my house, actually outside of Dallas, and there was no internet, basically. I mean, first of all, I should I'm very humbled to be here, by the way. Thank you so much for having me, everybody. I'm probably the dumbest person in the room, so I won't take up too much of your time here. But I started out making animated shorts and just mailing VHS copies out. I had no connections in the entertainment business at all. I looked at names and credits and called 411 and said, yeah, MTV, please, which felt really stupid. There was no internet. It was like, 1990, 91. So yeah, there was, and now, then it went from that to like, anybody can put anything on YouTube and it can go viral. I mean, my stuff was kind of going viral just by people making copies of VHS. Like I'd heard from people who had, I saw your stuff because I had a 10th generation VHS copy. But then now, like we've seen, now it's sort of, now YouTube can shut you down. And so, yeah, this feels like there's a new wave of a new cycle that everything needs to go through to kind of make it so, you could do what I did in the beginning, like just having no connections, put your stuff out there. I mean, as in the entertainment world anyway.
Yeah, you mentioned YouTube shutdowns. I know you were saying earlier that a friend of yours had a channel taken down this morning.
Oh yeah, well, so Zcash, which they're here, right?
Zuko's here.
Yeah.
Where's Zuko?
Well, no, this like everything seems to be interconnected here. Like, so I was reading about. So I did this movie Office Space and came out in '99. Oh, good. Okay. So someone's seen it. Okay. Well, so there's the scene of the printer smashing. The song that's playing during that printer smashing it's actually called "Still" by the Ghetto Boys. The chorus is "Dying motherfuckers." But so Willie D, who's the rapper on that, who I've become friends with over the years. Yeah, his YouTube channel was shut down, I think, for his use of the N-word, probably, but, he's got the right to say that. But, yeah, so here I'm reading about Zcash, to kind of coming to this conference, and they're talking about how they were destroying, and in fact, I was talking to some of the people from there today, how they were destroying their hard drives and whatnot as sort of a ceremony they were having, playing that Ghetto Boys song while they're doing that, kind of, as a sort of Office Space thing, and then thinking like this is like Willie D's channel is shut down by YouTube while all this is going on, and it's all coming together in a very weird way.
Well, I think you've highlighted one of the great problems of centralization, which is that you end up with decision-making power in a very small number of hands. Anyone can speak, but if you want to be heard, you need to be on one of the platforms. So it's obvious why people might not want centralization. But have you given any thought when you're thinking about the Silicon Valley plotline, or more broadly about why people want centralization? Is it just about getting to boss people around? Like, what's the impulse that drives centralization?
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably the least qualified person to talk about, but I can say from the show's perspective, well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if people want it. I think it just happens, probably. But from the show's perspective, it started out, Richard is this character who, I was an engineer briefly a long time ago. I studied physics in school, worked as an engineer. I remember compression being something that was interesting to me. It comes up a lot. It was a cryptography class I took. I probably should have paid more attention in it. But it struck me as interesting that it's something that just somebody could come up with possibly a better algorithm, and for our character, like, I think he's a guy who's an introverted guy who likes to just work out problems, and to suddenly have him thrust into this world where what he's made is worth a ton of money seemed interesting for that character. And Jonathan Doughton, who's here, who's been our liaison to the tech world, he's been so valuable to the show, started telling me about this decentralized sharded internet, the different ways you described it fairly early on, and you know, we started thinking, well, this, you know, we'd had the characters pivot a lot, and this is something that actually is like, as the show got kind of bigger and bigger, like this is something that's important to the world, and maybe we should try to take that on, and that could carry us to the end of the series probably, which hopefully won't be, I don't know, one more season we have at least.
Yeah, Jonathan, I had the great pleasure of meeting with Jonathan. He came down and talked to me, and I understand he's actually talked to a lot of people. There's some people in the room, David from Blockstack, or rather Munib and Ryan from Blockstack, and David from MadeSafe.
Oh yeah, MadeSafe was one that we looked at a lot for this last season.
So tell me about this kind of new techno-realist ethic that we're seeing emerging in entertainment, whether it's Mr. Robot or you guys, where instead of just like, we need this computer to do a thing that's narratively convenient, let's just invent a thing computers can or can't do on the spur of the moment. It seems like you had an interest in tailoring your storyline to the actual capabilities and constraints of computers?
Yeah, I mean, having been an engineer myself and having been a nerd in high school, I mean, I was like taking Fortran classes in junior high. That's how old I am. It always frustrated me to see the way they were portrayed in Hollywood. I just was like, it's always annoying to me. It's like, oh, there's a couple just underwear models pretending, like just they just didn't seem like program. Like the only examples I could think of, there's a movie called Primer that was a Sundance, yeah, it was a great movie. This guy, I've gotten to know him since, also Dallas guy. But he's a real engineer, had really been in that world. And that movie blew my mind because it's like, these guys actually seem like engineers, these people. And the Facebook movie, The Social Network, I thought did a pretty good job too. In fact, I thought maybe we're too late. That movie's already been done, but this was a comedy. But I don't know. I just thought it's the real characters are more interesting than what I had usually seen Hollywood do, and funnier, and also making it. I would use the example of there's something that Suge Knight of Death Row Records said that was like, for that music, it had to work first in the hood among those people, and then it could expand out like that. I thought that was an interesting, true thing, and I thought of this the same way. Like if I would like to get people in the real world, get that kind of street cred, and then I don't know. It seemed to be true of this show also. But yeah, I guess now there's more of that. I felt like at the time the only examples I could think of were Primer and Social Network. Yeah. Where they had really kind of tried to get it right.
Yeah, you see little bits of it creeping around the edge, but there's still, even to this day, it always amazes me to see a movie where you know that everyone who made it spent every hour that God sent sitting in front of a computer in the process of making it, and yet they've decided that for some reason all the computers are going to make this noise when the text appears that goes arrrr, arrrr, and then it's all in caps because they don't have 80 column cards yet, and I just think if I had that computer I would throw it away and buy a better one.
Yeah, there were a lot of movies, or not a lot, but a few in the 90s where they kept trying to make computers sexy in a way that didn't really make sense. There's like a movie called The Net, and like I don't know, I didn't even see the whole thing, but it just struck me as just out of touch Hollywood, like like it is a lot of the time. So it was nice to dig in and try to do it, and we try our best to make it as real as we can.
So it feels like part of the moment that we've arrived at is the moment at which people around the world are waking up and going, oh, wait, computers aren't a thing that we do to one side of the rest of the world, that like everything we do involves computers, and pretty soon everything we're going to do is going to require computers, and your thermostat is a computer in a fancy box, and your car is a computer in a fancy box, and your voting machine is a computer in a fancy box. So computers really have started to matter, and do you think that the moment at which we're starting to actually want computers that act like computers in entertainment, and the moment at which we're starting to care about whether or not our computers are well regulated or good or taking care of us, that those are related moments?
Yeah, probably. I mean, yeah, it's a good question. It all seems to be happening sort of on top of one another. Yeah, I mean, there was a while where people seemed to be kind of forcing a microprocessor into something where it didn't need to be yet, and that was that was very annoying to me for a while. But it's definitely, you know, in the course of doing this show, so we came out in 2014, we started writing it late 2012, early 2013. You know, the tech world has changed. It's like I say, I thought maybe we're coming to this too late. There was already this hit movie, Social Network, but yeah, it's just become more, you know, there weren't that many tech celebrities when I was in tech. There was hardly any. Bill Gates, barely. Steve Jobs. Now there's just a lot of them, you know, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg. There's a lot of, so a lot of the general public is kind of more aware of these types of personalities, which I think worked well for our show.
Yeah, I certainly you can see it playing out there and reflecting in the wider world. So this centralization question, it's one that, as Wendy pointed out, I think a couple of years ago, apart from a few wonks, no one would have cared about. Same with network neutrality, which is, I think, also like a decentralization question. You know, Tim Wu, when he coined the phrase, you know, I think he thought that it would just be something that people who lived in the weird little Venn diagram of people who care about competition and people who care about telecoms would know the word net neutrality. It's like not so much an overlap as a sphincter, you know. And now we have like 97% recognition and approval for network neutrality. We seem to have like turned up at this moment where people, just at the moment that we're recognizing tech's leaders and its sort of billionaire cult of personality headmen, that we're also saying, hey, it might be better if the world wasn't run by 7 billionaires who control the 7 companies that control the nervous system of the 21st century.
Yeah, that's a very new attitude that seems to have come about. I mean, and kind of in the last year, I think.
It like really has.
Well, with everything that's happened, you know, Facebook and Cambridge Analytica and the election, and yeah, a year and a half, I guess, 2 years almost. But yeah, it's a crazy time to be. You know, we're just doing a TV show, trying to make fun of it all, and to keep ahead of all this stuff, it's like sort of a, you know, the material is this embarrassment of riches, and and we, yeah, so we, you know. But I'm really glad we did the decentralized thing when we did, actually. It was, we thought about doing it a little earlier, but it, you know, we've had pretty good luck with the timing on this show, I think, keeping it relevant.
Yeah. So, I mean, that evergreenness or the urge to be evergreen and like the you know, idea that maybe you can make a show that can stay ahead of the curve. I have a small piece of insight for you to offer you, because 12 years ago I wrote a novel about kids in San Francisco fighting the DHS off with cryptographically secured networks, and its core premise was that computers are really important. No one really gets that. Computers can do a bunch of amazing things. Very few people understand what they are, but because computers are really important, we will make really dumb rules to try and fix them, and they won't work. And it turns out that if you just keep telling that story, it never gets any better. Like, there's a new thing that can be an allegory for every 10 minutes. And so I think that, like,
you could... 12 years ago?
12 years ago, yeah. You could just make a decentralization story that's about how important it would be if we were decentralized, and how hard it is, and how few people in power actually recognize that that's a thing that we should be paying attention to.
Yeah, well, you know, hopefully everybody here does it right this time. I hope for my own. I mean, I have faith.
Do you see a connection with the centralization in the entertainment industry, telecoms, tech, finance? Do you think that they're all aspects of the same phenomenon?
Oh, yeah, I mean, entertainment is, I I mean, it's been sorting itself out for the last, I don't know, for a while now. I mean, I don't know. Not sure what decentralization will mean for it. It's funny, it gets very meta with us. Like at one point we were, I don't know, like we're shooting on the Sony lot, a show about tech. HBO is funding it, and I think Sony was going to get bought by Apple and HBO by Google, or I don't know, like suddenly we're doing a show making fun of these places, and then they're both buying us, and yeah, I don't know. It's hard to keep track of all this stuff.
and you know, as you're going through this and making these jokes that are on the one hand, haha, only kidding, but on the other hand, haha, only totally serious.
Yeah.
Is there stuff like that that keeps you up when you think about kind of your future as a creator, your future as a human?
Yeah, well, I mean, I like to think we're on the sidelines. You know, I don't know if we've had much of an influence on it. Maybe a little bit. I mean, definitely it came up with the, you know, we sort of make fun of the gender gap in tech by, you know, like, and then it, like the second time when we toured Google before the show had ever come out, no one knew who we were. I remember going into a room and it's like about 80 programmers, only 2 females. The second time, after it had aired, I think it was the second time we went back to Google, they brought us into a room with nothing but women. And it was their PR kind of media interface person doing the tour. And then it kind of became, I mean, it may have had some effect there. I don't know. But I forgot what the question was. I mean, I think hopefully we have a good influence on it. I mean, I like what we try to do. You know, we're not, I don't think we're making propaganda films or anything like that. But I think, to me, it's about the characters. I think I like Richard, the main character. I like what he's doing. We want to like what he's doing. And so the decentralized thing seemed right for us. And by the way, they cut out all the punchlines. The show is funny. Like that was like, but I mean, you know, I think we try to make it a story about, it's not about the tech, it's about human beings, it's about these characters, and we try to be conscious of that, like, it's to make it an emotional story, and the tech is what he believes in and what he's trying to do, and you know, and just how a guy like that who's introverted has to suddenly deal with all these big forces, I think is interesting and funny. And the funny thing, and that's what's funny about the tech world that I've observed. So we sort of focus it on that, but try to make what he's doing be good. I think Alec and I talk about this, we want to believe that what he's doing is good, and so hopefully we're right about that.
Yeah. You know, you say that it's about the humans and not about the tech, but you also say, and I think that it's really true, that it's like the thing that makes the human story poignant and interesting is that this guy really cares about the technology. And I get the sense shining through that the people who work on the show really care, and not just in a kind of like, gosh, that I'm a train spotter and that train is very pretty and look at its amazing diesel lines or whatever, but in a sense that like it actually matters whether we get the tech right or wrong.
Oh yeah, and we have those conversations, and I think, I mean, not just because I'm hoping that the tech is for good, but also that like I say, like seeing. I've always kind of felt like an outsider to Hollywood. So, and same when I worked as an engineer. Like it's always nice to me, even if people in tech world say I can't watch it because it's too close to home. It's like, okay, well at least it's too close to home. So it's not. That's better than I can't watch it because it seems like a bunch of bullshit that I don't believe.
You've made such a wide range of works. I have to believe that you have a wide range of acquaintances in the industry, even though you're an outsider. Do they ever talk to you about the themes here? Does it make them rethink their relationship with the industry, with technology, with the stuff that's all around them?
Oh, you mean people in Hollywood?
In Hollywood,
rethinking
yeah.
I think it might have. Yeah. I mean, yeah. I mean, I've found that. I don't know. I mean, like as far as influencing the way they're doing their entertainment,
just how
or just
they're
sort of.
I mean, you know, like we wake up in the morning and there's a phone in our hand, and then we walk. Into,
yes,
and they're spending their whole day, you know, neck deep in technology.
Right.
And, from the looks of the media they're making, not thinking very hard about it.
Right.
Are they thinking harder about it?
I hope so. I mean, I actually wanted to, you know, I feel like just the public in general sort of takes for granted all of the hard work that, you know, the programmers do. I mean, watching the Mark Zuckerberg and the congressional hearing, I didn't watch all of it. I couldn't watch too much of it. It was just, but it's interesting the way I think people just sort of take for granted what the tech world does, and just like, you know, oh, well, of course Google is going to work. Of course all my emails are always going to work, you know, and not realizing that there's people on, what do you call it, beeper alert, and, you know, like that. I think, I don't know, hopefully, I think our show has maybe made people sort of think about that more and appreciate it, that, you know, I mean, even people on our crew, when we're doing that server basement thing, and you know, I remember Jonathan telling me, like, no, each one of those things costs $8,000. Like, that's like all your stuff being stored is, you know, like people are paying for that, and people are keeping all that stuff going, and it's a lot of work.
And you've made other media that thinks about the future of technology. You made an amazing and, as it turns out, unfortunately prescient movie called Idiocracy.
Thank you.
Where you really delve into the kind of cheapening of discourse, but there's also this kind of other plot about how people can use technology to find each other and plot a resistance. Do you take a side? Do you think technology can be used, that the answer to the machine might be the machine?
Oh, wait, that the what?
That the answer to the, like, maybe the way that we're gonna beat the problems of tech is by making better tech?
Boy, that's a good, I mean, so the very first draft, I started writing that. I wrote a treatment for it a long time ago, but started really trying to write it in 2001. This guy, Eitan Cohen, and I wrote the first draft of the actual script, and we didn't have a president. We had that the president was an AI thing. Mm-hmm.
In 2000, no, he was Bush.
Well, yeah.
No, sorry. Yeah.
But we called it Omnipal, and it was, and somehow it didn't, like, I don't know, that we kind of put it out there, and a lot of actors didn't want to do it, and I put it on the shelf for a couple of years, and then tried rewriting it with this Camacho character, which then things happened, and now we've got what we have. But no, I don't. I don't know. That was a tough one. Like, I sort of felt like I bit off more than I could chew with that one in a lot of ways, like writing-wise, and then also just realizing, oh my God, I'm making a movie set way in the future. Everything has to be built, light switches, everything. It's a big, daunting task to take on, especially with a low budget. But yeah, I would like to have another shot at that. I look at that and go, oh, there's a lot of things I would have done differently now. If I kind of can't watch it, actually, for a number of reasons.
Too close to home. Like the people who can't watch Silicon Valley.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
So in just under 4 minutes, we're going to start taking your questions. There are cards at the ends of the pews, and if you write your questions down, they'll be collected for you. Oh, there's people walking around with cards if you put your hands up for those. In terms of the decentralization plot, without spoiling the next season, which you say is the last one, is that right?
Oh, no.
No. You said at least one more.
At least
not,
one
not
more,
no
yeah.
more than one more. At least one more.
Yes.
Right. So in terms of the next season, I mean, obviously, like, the storyline of a sitcom is always that these guys have to fail until maybe they succeed in a heartwarming final double episode.
Right.
But can we please get a working decentralized internet?
Well, yeah. Yes. Let's do it. And maybe it will already have been done by you all. Well, I mean, it looks like some of you are pretty close from what I've seen, the demos. Yeah, well, that's always the difficulty with a show like this. Like Alec and I were saying, it's, if you're doing the bad news Bears and suddenly they're winning all the games, they're just the Bears. And
Right.
But then again, I mean, we ended this season on a pretty high note.
Yeah.
And, it's also, mo money, mo problems. You can have a higher level of problems and more stress. But yeah, I think ultimately the series end, I think, should be a very positive, good for humanity, decentralized network that's working.
Yeah, there's a little throwaway gag, or at least it plays like a throwaway gag in the last episode of the current season, where having finally attained something that looks like success, maybe it's success in their decentralized internet, the chief of their operations comes in and says, the NSA is on the phone, and they'd like to talk to us about backdooring the internet, backdooring our new internet. I've actually talked to people who've been in that situation. People were on the committees for early Wi-Fi standards and so on who did get that call. Do you think that there might be a time when the internet is synonymous with privacy instead of mass surveillance?
I think that would be good.
I mean, do you think it could play? Do you think as a storyteller you could tell that story?
Oh,
and people go, that sounds like a thing that we might...
It'll be like happily ever after, and that's a good question. I mean, we sort of every season, and we've done this since the beginning, we just put everything we have into that season and worry about the next one later. We're just like, we kind of do everything like it's the last season. But I don't know. I mean, that's. I hope so. That we were just actually talking tonight. I'm not going to name names. Everybody seems like they don't. This is the Decentralized Web Summit, so we won't name it. But talking about that there's that government law. I guess it goes back to World War II about if you have an encryption that's really good, you can't sell it to a foreign government or put it in another country, and putting it online is the
export
same thing.
Controls,
yeah, export. So that's something we almost did as a plot line actually in the last couple seasons, but haven't gotten to yet. But yeah, I don't know.
You should come talk to us at Electronic Frontier Foundation if you're doing that, because we won the lawsuit in 1992 that legalized civilian access to strong crypto, representing a guy here at UC Berkeley. We established that code is a form of speech and that the First Amendment protects your right to publish code.
Do you think that's going to keep holding?
Boy, that's an interesting question.
I mean,
and if only we didn't have incredibly bad early test cases for it, like, is a gun a form of protected speech? Gosh, do I wish we had better early questions to test out the legality of this, because as they say, hard cases make bad law, which we are now just living through the middle of in terms of code publication and source publication. Yeah,
that's a whole world that we've only kind of, in our show, scratched the surface of. But
And in terms of this kind of bidirectional play between technologists and the show, have you found a sweet spot? Do you have a surprising revelation or anything about the best way to gather technical input, or ways that you've been surprised by how technical people have used the stuff that you've put in the show?
Well, I mean, there's something called the Wiseman score, which didn't exist. We wanted a way to graphically show his compression versus other ones, and it's got Vineeth Masra, and was it Dr. Wiseman? Well, he named it after, I forget Wiseman's first name. It's all Stanford people. He actually came up with a way to measure compression that
like a benchmark.
Yeah, that's actually really works pretty well. I mean, it takes into account a lot of. Every question I had for him is oh no, it handles that. He also did a very detailed paper that he published about that. We had a thing at the end of this first season about all our guys, just because they were bummed out about what happened, go off on a tangent trying to mathematically figure out the most efficient way to jerk off 500 guys at the same time, involving putting their penises tip to tip when using one guy with 4. And Beneath actually published a paper, and it was completely legit. He went way further than I asked him to with this. And he got his PhD, and he's at IBM now. That was not his PhD on something else, but it's out there for anybody to see if you would ever want to. Yeah, so we've had some influence.
So I'm going to take some of these audience questions. I'm interested in this one. How do you feel about trollish online humor, especially ones that engage with the stuff you've made, like the Pied Piper coin, which is helmed by Richard Hendricks, screen name, not real name. Is this
you
this
mean
flattering?
Yeah. Is this the person who's really?
Yeah, there's someone whose screen name is Richard Hendricks who has created a thing called Pied Piper coin that is a thing in the world. That
yes.
You can invest money in that I'm sure will be returned to you several fold if you are smart enough to make a very large stake in it.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I don't know. I got to figure out how to monetize these things. I feel like anytime I'm exactly out of rhythm with, I don't invest much at all because I feel like I'm that person. Well, I did a scene at the beginning of Office Space where where he's in his car and it's that thing where you see, oh, that lane keeps going, but I know as soon as I go into that lane, it's going to stop. And then you go, well, it's been going on and okay, you know what? I'm just going to do it. And then it stops. I'm that guy with investing. I think
Sure.
I will be the needle that bursts the bubble if I put money. I'm just going to let them.
Or like they say, if you can't find the sucker at the poker table, chances are you're the sucker at the poker table.
Yeah, I prefer to be the guy making fun of the poker table and doing my best at that.
And will Richard ever release Pied Piper as open source?
I don't want to give it away, but well, since we're all a decentralized group, we've talked about that for sure. I think that would be a very, yes.
And can we talk about licenses? Do we want a share-alike clause in there, or is it just? Sorry,
we'll get into that. We'll come to you when we're writing that.
We can have
no, that is
a license discussion.
Yeah, we almost had a Richard Stallman character, and we've had you never know. I mean, there are a lot of cameos still that I would like to, from the real tech world, bring in, but we just got to be careful. It's also difficult to the writing process. If you start with, I want to have, which sometimes it works that way, but just in the writer's journey, if you will, you'll find something that's strong, and if you go in with an agenda like that, it's not always the best way to approach it. But that is something for sure that we've thought of doing and almost done, and probably will do.
Someone in the audience raises the question, a question about Black Mirror and how you feel about these kind of darker sometimes comedic, depending on how you feel about pigs, sometimes comedic visions for a technological future.
I like Black Mirror a lot, actually. I still haven't seen them all, but it's really good, a little bit scary. That's sort of a more in the future kind of Twilight Zone version of ours, but I thought that show was really well done. I like it.
It feels like a kind of corollary to Silicon Valley, really the user story of all those people. Like, what happens when all the lovable goofballs get together in their mom's garage in Silicon Valley and make a thing that's supposed to be great but goes comedically horribly wrong? What is it like to be the actual person who's now locked into a retina whose server is no longer available, and so all you see is a test pattern for all of eternity or something?
That is sort of here's the end game of that bad idea or good idea.
And then, so there's a statistic I read lately, which is that 60% of all statements related to the blockchain are non-consensual. We have one of them here. Why do the Pied Piperites create a distributed web instead of a blockchain?
Well, the last season they did create Pipercoin.
Right. But why not a blockchain on which all things can run?
Oh.
As we're reminded, could be a
Oh, well, they could. That's a maybe they will.
Maybe they will.
Yeah, the more I find out about this, I mean, that's kind of what we like to come here for, is just listen and learn. And so, yeah.
I like this one. You touched on this before in terms of lampooning it, but someone wants to know when we'll see more coding women on Silicon Valley.
Well, yeah, yes, yeah, I think there should be. Like I say, this is originally, coming into this, like from my perspective, okay, I'd done a show called King of the Hill. We did 13 seasons. Oh, thank you. And I've said this before, but in those entire 13 years, I never heard anybody complain that there weren't any women in propane. Mm-hmm. And so, I went into this going like, oh, this is the tech world, and we're going to make fun of that. And like one of the things people said over and over again, one of the things that's kind of funny about it is there aren't any girls. And these stories that I've heard this story multiple times about, if from people working in a big room where everybody's coding, and also from like women who work in restaurants where a lot of tech people go, that like when a woman walks into the room, you hear all the typing stop because of the awkwardness of it, because they're just so we're looking for funny things, and when you do satire, you exaggerate what's there. And so that was my approach, was like, let's try to get this right. Hollywood is always portraying it in a different way. This was part of my approach of just like, let's try to really do an honest portrayal of this world. And like one of the things that happened, we went to TechCrunch Disrupt as a research trip, and I brought my Canon 5D really just for art department and for extras. I was saying, here's what a tech crowd looks like. This is when we're putting together extras, and I just put my camera on the audience, and I ended up using those shots actually in the show, like cutting. So the audience and a very high up at Facebook person who had said something to us, saying, that shot of the audience was kind of sexist that you guys did. And we said, no, that's the real audience. We're like,
wow,
that's on you guys.
I wonder if there isn't another show to be made in the same way that Black Mirror is the user story. I wonder if there isn't a show to be made that this is the story of the women who are in fact virtuoso programmers, who are completely awesome, who are the ones who every time they show up to do their job, all the typing stops and people snigger.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what, and we did a little bit of a scene like that in the first season. And I mean, we could probably do better. The thing I will say, we have had more women as the show's gone on, female coders. And this last season, we had a couple we introduced towards the end that I think are really good. I mean, we could do more for that. I mean, I think, like I say, initially it was sort of, we are trying to not just be a Hollywood pandering to like, here's what it should be like. We're just showing what it's like. And I think we would have been doing a disservice to say there's no gender imbalance and pretend it doesn't exist. I think it was better to just show it like it is. That said, yeah, I mean, we've had so many great, we were talking earlier with some folks here that we've had two really great consultants, a woman at Facebook, one at Dropbox, that have given us just great stories that did not want their name on the show. So you don't see their names in the credits by their choice. I'm not sure exactly why. Well, I know, I get it.
Well, tell me about that. So why would someone who's got an amazing job want to volunteer, just to consult on the show, and why wouldn't they want their name on it then?
Yeah, I mean, some do, and some want to be in it. Some, which we've had cameos. I don't know what I didn't ask too much. It's funny. She's been a big advocate of us and like gotten us into Facebook and and Google. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think maybe for her own career, like it's
sure.
not that important to her, and it might be also we kind of made a character look very much like her.
Do you think that it's just about wanting to see yourself reflected on the screen, or is it?
I think it's
is it
probably
about
fun for them.
Yeah,
I mean, what
okay.
was nice, what I liked about it is just that they liked the show enough to want to tell us stories.
Sure.
That's been a really rewarding thing for me, because that was the goal, was to have it, to get a little bit of respect out of the tech world for it. That meant a lot to me. So it's been nice.
So someone points out that there have been a lot of different visions for the distributed web, that Tim Berners-Lee imagined putting a server under every desk, and we would all, that the internet would just be everywhere, and we would all be a part of it, as opposed to using someone else's services. Did you spend much time thinking about all the different visions of decentralization when you chose the one you did?
Yeah, and we still are. I mean, we met with a company that's doing that, where you have your own thing, and then everybody else who has that. I can't remember the name of the company. Yeah, and we still, that still could evolve. Where, with the show, the company, Pied Piper's pivoted a lot throughout. So I think as we learn more about it, we might find something that suits our show better. But yeah, we did look at we did a lot of research on that going into the last season.
So we're running out of time here, but 3 separate people asked, who is Bobby Hill? Which feels like maybe an insider question that King of the Hill fans
something
asked.
came up on the internet. I don't know where it came from. It didn't come from me. About that. Is it who's Bobby Hill's dad? Is that what they're?
No, just who is Bobby Hill?
Oh, related. Well, okay. The character. A long time ago, and I was in an appliance store in Austin. Me and my ex were buying something, washing machine, I don't know. And I was just looking over, and there was a kid who was probably like 12, just standing over by the washing machine, staring off into space. And I don't know, I just liked something about the kid. I liked the way he was just sort of looking off into nothing. Kids that age tend to just sit like a lump and not do anything. And I mean, I used to be like that. And I just went home and drew him. It was before I had created King of the Hill, but it was, when I started doing it, I just made him the son. And then when Pam Adlon, it's voiced by a woman who's just a brilliant, she's got her own show now and worked on the Louis C.K. show. And she did the voice, and when she started doing the voice, it all just sort of came together. But there's been an internet rumor that Bill, the neighbor, is her dad, and I don't know where it came from, but it's picked up steam, and I get it on Twitter all day long. But I mean, there's really, it's a cartoon, so there's not.
That's good to know.
If I want to make Bill the dad, I will, but I haven't done that yet.
Very good. So we've come here to do something a bit weird and a bit improbable, to think about a future in which there maybe isn't a Google or a Facebook or a Twitter, or there are distant memories or shadows of what they once were. When you think about all these different visions that you've had for the future, for alternate worlds, for comedy, is it seem plausible to you? Like, reality check us here, like sanity check us, like you've just shown up. We're kind of a mixed bag. Do you think, give it to us straight? Like, if someone came to you in the writer's room and said, I've got this idea, in 10 years, 20 years, the internet as we know it won't exist anymore, and it will have been replaced by lots of individuals and small firms doing their own thing, decentralizing power, and people will say, Google who? Mark Zucker what? Is it plausible? Can we do it?
Boy, well, since I'm the guy that did Idiocracy, maybe you want to hope that I'm going to be wrong. So I don't know.
Idiocracy turned out to be very prescient, as we've noted. So I'm drawing on you.
Yeah, I think I got lucky or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. I don't know. I mean, I'm old enough to like when I did Idiocracy, the way I was thinking was okay. I had the idea like in '96. I didn't do anything with it. When I was actually trying to start writing, it was in 2001, and I was thinking about Kubrick's 2001 and how here we are in 2001, and Kubrick predicted this pristine civilized thing, and I was thinking, wouldn't that have been funny if that movie was like Jerry Springer Show and horrible, like giant Costco, and instead of the monolithic kind, look. So I was kind of projecting that on. Now that said, in my lifetime, you didn't imagine. I mean, things change in ways you can't possibly imagine. Obviously, it seems like it would be better if things were that way, I think, especially in light of the last couple of years. So, yes, I think it could happen. Yeah. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it could be that way. I hope it is. I think it would be good for the world.
One of the most inspiring moments of my life, I was in Geneva, I was working for EFF, and we were doing this stuff at the UN, and this guy, Jamie Love, who started a group called Knowledge Ecology International, got a whole bunch of us together from different groups at Médecins Sans Frontières to draft a treaty on universal access to knowledge. And someone said, Jamie, what are we doing here at 7 a.m. on a Sunday in Geneva? Like, there's croissants out there we could be eating. And he said, we've got no chance of doing this. We're like a weird ragtag bunch of info hippies. This is never going to happen. And he said, the WTO was founded by a group of people no smarter than you within a mile of where you're standing in a room just like this. It's how everything starts.
Oh, yeah. That is good. Yeah, I think, I mean, that's way more important than what we do in Hollywood, but it is true. I mean, you always think of, I mean, I have low self-esteem, I think. You kind of, but yeah, I think it's the build it and they will come, and it, I don't know, I always work from a place of like thinking like, both, I think this could be good, but I feel silly doing it. But yeah, what you're doing is much more important, and I hope you do it well. I think you will.
Well, I thank you for the inspiration, and thanks for coming and talking to us tonight.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, this has been great for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
All righty.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Cory. Well, you'll be happy to hear that we have dessert for you, and it's ice cream. So, guys, we got a long, wonderful week ahead. So we're going to send you home with ice cream, and if you want, you can do the silent disco. We'll see you tomorrow at the San Francisco Mint. We have 150 sessions. We couldn't be there without our wonderful sponsors. Thank you to Ford Foundation, and we say go. Ethereum Foundation, the Sloan Foundation, MadeSafe, Protocol Labs are in the house, Hollow, Hyperledger, Blue Systems, the Web3, and Blockstack. These folks contributed so that so many more people could come, so that we could bring people from all over the world. We could offer discounts to nonprofits and students, and it's thanks to these folks that we have you in the house. So, on that note, we're going to say goodnight, have some ice cream on us, and we'll see you tomorrow at the Mint, bright and early. Thank you. If you're an organizer, please come on up. We want to have a picture with Mike. If you're an internet archiver, come on up.